Hello, this is Lorraine Appleyard, and welcome to Soul Light Solutions, where I talk about how to bring more soul, spirit, and magic into your life and the balance of the mind, body, and the spirit.
Today, I am speaking to a lady that I consider a real inspiration when it comes to mediumship. And the reason why I find it so inspiring is because she has dedicated such a length of time towards mediumship and really feels that mediumship is a dedication. And to have that in your daily life. And I found her particular style of teaching and the way that she approached spirit and the spirit world very inspirational. And I would like today to introduce you to Luann Beecher.
Hello.
Lou, thank you very much for joining me today. It really is a pleasure to be able to speak to you. And I know that you have a wealth of information from your journey of mediumship. So tell me first of all,
yeah.
Tell me first of all, how did you get into mediumship? Were you always a medium? Tell me, how did this unfold?
No, I was not always a medium. I think I was always spiritual in some way, but I wasn't the person that saw ghosts and all that kind of thing growing up. My journey started about 25 years ago. So we're going back to like the late 90s. And somebody told me that there was a lady that had come over from England and that she could talk to dead people and she would connect you with your dead people. And I thought, this is the biggest joke I've ever heard in my life. I think she's ripping people off of their money. So I booked an appointment with her to prove her as a fake and a fraud. So my journey did not start out as far as looking at mediumship in the nicest of ways. But I went to see her and I looked like a bag lady. I had taken off my wedding ring. I had sweatpants and a baggy shirt on, so you couldn't tell what I did for work or if I was married, not married, whatever, because I was going to fool her. And when I got there, she was a lovely woman and she started connecting with spirit and she's talking about this man named Carl. And I'm thinking, I don't know anybody named Carl. And, even my body language, when I think back to it, I sat like this the whole time. Nope, no, no. I was the worst sitter ever. So she's talking about this Carl and she's telling me that he's of German descent and that he's surrounded by women. And I'm thinking, I don't know anybody named Carl. So she moves past Carl and she connects with my grandmother. And she starts saying things about my grandmother. Some things I knew, some things I didn't. And she said, go ask your mother and father because they'll verify. One of them was about that my grandmother was a tea leaf reader.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, she's not a tea leaf reader. I never seen her, ever do tea leaf readings. So I asked my parents about it. I'm playing the recording from her session because she let me record it. And she's going on about her being a tea leaf reader. And my parents are like, oh, yeah, the tea leaf readings. I'm thinking, wait a minute. So apparently, and I remember this as a child, like if there was a family dinner, the men would go to the living room and talk politics and men stuff. And the women went to the kitchen and cleaned up the dishes and they would have a cup of tea. And when they were done, they would rip off the corner of the tea bag and they would dump the leaves out. They would swish them and turn the cup over and they would read these tea leaves. I had no idea. And actually, later on down the road, I devoted myself to learning tea leaf readings in honor of my grandmother. So I teach it. I do tea leaf readings. I love them, but that's like a whole nother thing. So she brought my grandmother through. And there was a moment in the reading that I thought, pay very close attention because something magical is happening. And I wanted to tear up because it was very emotional, but I wouldn't let myself do that in front of her. After she brings my grandmother through, she's telling me that I'm a medium and that there's this
nice.
whole band of spirit on the other side that are just waiting for me to open the door. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. And so once the reading was over, like I said, she was a lovely, lovely lady. I go home. So I tell my husband, like, you got to remember, this was in the 90s, and I think I paid $60 for a reading, which was a lot of money.
A lot of money, yes.
Yeah. And I'm telling my husband, I'm like, okay, I might have done something really dumb today, but I got one question to ask you. Who is Carl? He said, Carl's my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
I said, okay. Is he of German descent? And he went, well, you know, they're from Massachusetts, but I believe his family origin was German, from Germany. I'm like, okay, why would he be surrounded by women? And he said, because there were 9 children in the family and he was the only boy. He had 8 sisters. And I thought, okay, you can't make this stuff up. So then I go on to tell him about, my grandmother and all of that. And it got me curious. So I don't know if you've heard of Sylvia Brown, but back then Sylvia Brown was the only person that I knew that did this kind of thing. And I started reading her books, and she's talking about the spirit world and heaven and all of that. And I'm thinking, these are the same thoughts and questions I've had my whole life.
Yes.
Not really labeling it as spiritual or spirituality or whatever. I wasn't labeling it. It was just questions that I had. So the next year, Irene comes back. And of course, I couldn't wait to pay the money to see her this time. And so she said, have you thought about what I told you last year? She remembered. And I said, well, yeah, she did. And I thought, I said, I'm not really ready to open the door to do this for other people, but I'd like to open the door to be able to connect with my own family members. And she said, my dear, the door is either opened or it's closed. And if you open it, you don't know where it's going to lead you. So Irene and I opened the door, and she started mentoring me. And Irene had studied under Gordon Higginson. And later on, when I met Mavis Patilla, if you've heard of Mavis Patilla,
yes.
Mavis and Irene were friends. And
lovely.
Yes, there was something about Mavis that I thought, gosh, she reminds me of Irene. And I asked her, have you ever heard of Irene Netterman? And she said, oh, my Irene. And she was telling me stories. And I thought, this is meant to be. Mm-hmm. This is meant to be. So that's how it all started. Then I started having these little meetings in my house where I had no idea what I was talking about, but I would be like, Tuesday night is a class on clairvoyance. And then I would have to study and read and look up and learn all about clairvoyance so I could teach his class because I knew nothing about it. And that's how it kind of started. It pushed me into my own exploration of mediumship. So sorry, that was a long story. But
no, that's lovely. I love that.
Yeah. So it's amazing. I want to share with you because the spirit world will show you signs all the time. And we probably know, or if people don't know, Mavis Patilla had passed away.
Yes.
And I was at Arthur Findlay College this past June. And Mavis's portrait is in one of the rooms there. And I kept thinking, I don't know that I'm ready to go in and see this portrait because I was afraid I'd get emotional. So after about 3 days at Arthur Findlay College, there's nobody in the room, and I decide to go in. And I go in, And I have to tell you, they kept every wrinkle of love in Mavis's face in this